Welcome back to build season. This episode we're going to get started working on this 68 AMC Rebel I picked up out in New Mexico. Really excited for this car. So here's a closer look at this thing. I didn't show a whole bunch of it when I was in New Mexico, so I was working on that Javelin the whole time. But this car is exceedingly nice. It's got a couple of dings here. Somebody must have been shooting. They do that a lot out there, I guess. Overall, it's an extremely solid car, but it is absolutely packed full of parts. So of course, like I like to buy them, it has no engine or transmission. Yeah, the engine's over there in a pile with a whole bunch of other parts. It's all brand new, the crank spin machine, etc. We'll go through that in a minute. The trunk is also packed full of parts. There's the transmission, hubcaps, oil pan, accessories, all kinds of stuff. The interior is also packed full of parts. There's a full set of AMC Magnum wheels. There's some brake parts in here, and I think brand new drums right there. As you can probably tell, I sound sick. That's because I am. I avoided the cold that went around Wisconsin for as long as I could, and of course, as soon as I got back from New Mexico, I got it. So, apologize for the way I sound. It is what it is. I think what I'm going to start with is just cataloging all the parts that came with this car. I need to know what I have, especially for the engine, in case I have to order any parts to put that thing together. This is the first group of parts I got with the car. So here is the block. Now the block has been stored in dry storage in Sheridan's shop for a long time. But the block has been completely pulled apart. All the freeze plugs are out of it. This thing was hot tanked, cleaned, and all ready to go. So it's basically ready. However, I do believe when we get this thing flipped right side up, I'll show you there is a little bit of ring ridge. So here's a whole bunch of the parts that came with the engine. So in this box, we had a set of Elgin lifters, Durabond cam bearings, and Melling camshaft. So I'm going to guess that this is probably just a factory grind camshaft. However, it is brand new. Being that those cam bearings are in a box on the bench means probably going to have to take that block to a local machine shop and just have them install the cam bearings. I could buy a tool and do it myself, but it won't cost much to have a machine shop do it, and they'll do it right. This mystery box, we've got, King bearings. Not sure if these are rod or main bearings. And what? Oh, Hastings piston rings. Perfect. Looks like the main bearings are right here. Rod bearings are right here. Rings. Looks like we have most of what we need. Let's check out what's in here. Survey says these look like rod bolts. Look at this. We have some brand new pistons. Damn air compressor. All right, so we have ourselves a brand new set of pistons. Bad news is they are 40 over, and that block has not been bored. So here's the old pistons and rods, and the pistons are actually stuck on the pin. Like, this piston will not rock back and forth on the rod. These are eventually going to have to be switched to the new pistons up there. So what I'll do now is I'm going to hit all of this stuff with PB Blaster right around the piston pin, just to try to get these to free up. It'll make it easier for when we have to take everything apart. I think I'll call the machine shop tomorrow, get an idea what it's going to take to have that block machined and ready to go for assembly. In the meantime, I might go after that 304 that I have sitting in the corner. That would bolt up to everything we have here. It would drop in the car just the same as the 343, and it would give us a running AMC Rebel. If it was only that simple. While the bad boy engine's being built. In case you're curious about what SST stands for, it stands for Super Sport Touring. So in essence, this Rebel was the top of the line Rebel you could get. I think maybe shy of the Rebel machine, but it had all the fancy trim, a lot of which is missing or in the car. It had air conditioning, power brakes, power steering. It was a really nicely equipped car from the factory. Unlike most cars from New Mexico, this car has an interior. It's actually in pretty good shape. It's blue, and the front and rear seats actually match. Now, while the dash is completely destroyed, as most New Mexico cars are, this thing survived pretty good. Looks all right to me. Getting back out to the shop today, and the parts pile is really starting to get big. Building cars like this takes a lot of parts, and that takes a lot of money. That brings me to the sponsor of this video, Upside. Financial resolutions are great, but let's be real. Between post-holiday credit card bills and getting back to your regular routine, cash is tight, and that's why there's Upside. The free Upside app gets you cash back on gas, groceries, and food. 3 things draining your wallet right now. There's over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants participating in the Upside app. That means that there's cash back opportunities everywhere you go. And yeah, it's cash back. No points that you're never going to use or pointless offers that expire, just real cash back that you can transfer directly to your bank account. Here's how it works. You open the app, find an offer, claim it, pay for it with your card like you normally would, and get paid. That's it. Users earn over $1 million a week using Upside, and you can stack cash back from Upside on top of your existing credit card rewards. When I'm on the go looking for cars like this or dragging them back, I need gas and I need food anyway, so I might as well look through the Upside app and get cash back on something I'm gonna buy regardless. Upside's given back over $1 billion to its users. To find out how much you could earn, download the free Upside app and use code BUILDSEASON for an extra 25 cents back on every gallon of your first tank of gas. That's right, an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas using the promo code BUILDSEASON. Now back to the video. Just because I'm curious, I wanted to give this thing a try. This is a Viver Digital Ultrasonic Cleaner. I want to try dunking one of these pistons in there, letting it sit for a while, just to see if maybe the ultrasonic can blast this seized piston pin from inside that piston. So what I'm going to try in here is like a 50-50 solution of vinegar, and I added some water and then a little bit of dish soap. We're going to see if with a little bit of heat and ultrasonic, maybe we can get these pistons to come free. Let's give this a try. An entire piston fits in here. Here we go. Oof, that's horribly loud. Sorry for that. Whoa, look what it's doing already though. Whoa. Sorry, I know it's probably loud. All right, so ultrasonic cleaning is more of an off-camera activity. Man, I didn't realize how annoying that is. So I won't run this while I'm filming. So here it is. AMC 304 out of Steve's Hornet like 4 years ago. But this thing is in pretty good shape. Yeah, it's a little bit dirty, but has a good camshaft in it. Nice set of lifters and stuff. This thing has been kept, I mean, I had a rag over this. I had a towel over this thing for the last 4 years. It's exceptionally clean inside. Look at the valve train and stuff. I mean, this engine ran really good. It was just a 304, not a 360. Now, just because I'm curious, so let's just see if this thing still rolls over like it used to. Yep. Oh yeah, perfect. Get some oil down each cylinder and a little bit on top of the lifters and stuff. I think we're gonna go with this. So this thing's been in here for 30 minutes, I think. Let's see what it looks like after a 30-minute bath in just vinegar and dish soap. Look at that. Holy cow. That's quite a bit cleaner. Let's see now, does it actually move? Look at this. Woo! All right. That one's loosened up. Awesome. I only have 7 more to go. I'm going to use this 304. The biggest hurdle I have is to make sure that this transmission that came with the Rebel will actually bolt up. I know the bell housings match, but I need to make sure that the torque converter and flex plate's all going to work. Otherwise, we're on the hunt for a different transmission or a different flex plate or something else. This thing has been in the desert for a while and must have been leaking for a good while too. We have all kinds of mud and stuff packed on this thing. So I'm going to scrub this and scrape at this a little bit, see if I can't get casting numbers off of this thing. I think that this is a cast iron case aluminum bell, which would make this maybe a Borg-Warner M11 or 12. I'm not sure. There's a lot of different sources online that say there's different transmissions offered in the 68 Rebel. Well, this is going well. I've been chiseling and wire wheeling and trying to unearth the casting numbers on this transmission. I think I found what I need on top, but I'm going to clean the other side, the driver's side of the transmission here anyway, just to see if I can find any more identifiable information. All right, I think I found what I need. That AS, what is that? AS 14-11, and then the serial number here is 18234. So according to my Googling, with the info on the tag here and the fact that the case shows 11-1 right here, and the fact that this is a cast iron case with an aluminum bell and aluminum tail housing. And this also has overspray of the factory AMC blue on here. So I believe this is the transmission that came with this car originally. And this, I think, means that this is a Borg-Warner M11 transmission. Now the thing I'm wondering about more than anything is, will that torque converter from the M11 bolt up to the flex plate on this 304? All right, this torque converter's got studs. So that's going to be a problem, I think. Let's see how much trans fluid we can leak everywhere. Now, is this like typical AMC stuff, or this only goes together one way? No dice. Oh, man. All right, well, that doesn't work. I swear my air compressor has an audio sensor on it, and it waits for me to start recording. My plan to just drop this 304 in the car and get it running is quickly falling apart. The transmission that came with the car doesn't bolt to the 304. The flex plates are different. The torque converters are different. The 304 also needs a bunch of parts, an intake, a distributor, an accessory drive, etc. So I'm back on the plan of using the 343. The pistons that came with the 343 are 40 over. I can't use them unless I have the block machined. I called the local machine shop. If I take the block there, they couldn't guarantee me it would be done in a few weeks, which means it could be sitting there for months. I don't want to mess with that. I can't reuse the pistons that came with this thing because they're really, really crusty. They're actually stuck. The pins are stuck to the pistons. And this one particularly, I broke the other day, smacking it with a soft face hammer, trying to get the piston to come free. But I do have a plan. I can get a set of 343 pistons in standard bore. I can have them delivered to the house here for a little bit less than what it would cost me to machine that block. The bores in this block look really good. There's a very, very slight ring ridge at the top. I'm confident I can give it just a very, very light ridge ream and then hit it with a flex hone, and this thing will be good enough. New pistons and new rings, slap it together and we'll roll. That way I can use all of this that came with the car. That means the little 304 can go right back on its engine stand and sit in the corner. Good morning. It is one of the best days of every build, and that is engine building day, right? It's my favorite thing to do on the channel, short of like strapping or bolting turbos to the side of everything. So the usual suspects are here. Sam and Neil have joined me today. Neil actually brought a whole bunch of spare parts so we can try to make a complete car out of this thing. We're gonna get started right away with the ridge ream. So we have here a ridge reamer. If you guys have ever seen one of these, it's kind of like, I mean, this is not a precision instrument and we're not doing a precision operation right now, but essentially what it is there's a carbide cutting blade right here, and you adjust the ridge reamer out until it meets the edge of the bore, and then using a larger wrench you turn the entire ridge reamer around to slowly cut the ridge out of the cylinder. Built into the ridge reamer there are two tabs here that are meant to ride on the deck surface of the block. So basically what we're going to do is we get the ridge reamer down in the bore, it's sitting on the tabs, tighten it out, not with a ton of pressure, and then using a larger wrench, turn the entire ridge reamer around with a little bit of oil. It's important that you keep the ridge reamer as flat as possible, riding on the deck surface. And this is a little bit of a slow process, but take your time. We're partway down to the ridge, so we're just going to keep running the tool and tightening it ever so slightly until we get all the way through to the bottom of the ridge. So as you can see, we are very, very slowly cutting that ridge out of there. Just a little bit at a time, so I can still feel it. I'm going to go back in and do just a little bit more. So Neil is over here working on cleaning up the cylinder heads. And all he's doing here is he's taking some degreaser, lightly brushing these, because I don't have a good way of getting like a whole vat of water out here. So these are all clean, and I'm using my cheapy ultrasonic cleaner. I've got the valves in here. I had them soaking and buzzing for about an hour. So we're going to go back and lightly hit these with a wire wheel to make sure we got all the crud off of them. And then we'll load them into the cylinder head here, and we'll lap the valves with the cylinder heads in this tote. Then we'll wash them all clean. So I'll address this right now. You're going to hear the heater in the background. It's like -12, -13 outside this morning. So we're going to stay in here and the heater's going to run. lapping valves. You saw me do this when I did my Datsun cylinder head. You're going to take the valve, run it through the cylinder head, like that. And then we're going to do the old Freiberger trick of a piece of hose on a drill bit. We'll slip that over the valve here and use the drill bit to spin them in place. Alright, so here's our valve grinding compound, and I'm just spreading that on the back of the valve here. And then, once you got some compound on there, basically just push the valve up into the seat and spin it with the drill. It is time. Enter the flex hone. I borrowed this from Eric at S Motorsports. If you've ever done this before, you know exactly what I'm about to say, but use some sort of oil. Some people use diesel fuel, or WD-40 works fine too. Get the hone moving before you plunge it into the cylinder, and then, I don't know, what is it? We'll probably do 10 to 15, maybe 20 strokes maximum at first. We'll wipe it out and check for our crosshatch pattern. And then if we don't see what we like, we can go back in again. And then there we go. And that's about all it takes. So that's the first go around. We'll wipe this out, see what it looks like. If it needs more, we can go back in. There you go. Now you can still see there's just a tiny little bit of a ring ridge here, but it's barely perceptible, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But that is, at least to me, that looks like pretty good cross hatching on this cylinder wall. We'll move on to the rest. Start the freeze plug in there, get your freeze plug installation tool and your freeze plug installation hammer. I think FedEx is going to fail us again. The pistons were supposed to be here yesterday, then they were supposed to be here today, and now the arrival time keeps getting moved out. Doubting that they're going to show up at all, but in the meantime we have other work we can do. The crank for this 343 was cut 10 under. We have a set of brand new King bearings. These are 10 under bearings. So we're just gonna check clearances, at least on the mains right now. Check tolerances on the crank. We're gonna install the bearings and the crank in the block with no grease or any lubricant of any kind. We're just simply gonna set the crank in place, and then we'll tighten, torque all of the main caps down to spec with plastic gauge just to check clearance. So when I do bearings, especially main bearings, kind of like to roll them into place. If you look here, there's a tang on the bearing. That's the locking tang. You have to make sure that that lines up with the tang that's machined in the block. Get this started in the block here. Line up the tang with the mark on the block, and then basically just kind of roll this into place until that tang lines up. And then just push the bearing until it's flush with the block on either side of the journal. Now, should be able to drop the crank. Right. All right, we'll put all the main caps on, and then we'll get the torque spec, lay a couple pieces of plastic gauge in here. Essentially, all you do with plastic gauge is you drop it right onto the journal that you want to measure clearance for, as long as it doesn't stick to your hand. Hardest part is getting the plastic gauge to stay in place. You can see plastic gauge is laid right across, and then we're going to install the main cap right over the plastic gauge. Got to torque all the mains down, and I wanted to try these out. These are the digital torque adapters from Harbor Freight. This isn't sponsored, but I wanted to try these for a while because it turns any ratchet you have into a torque wrench. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, that hit 50. That wasn't the intention. Not yet, but pretty cool. So again, tightening the crank. I'm tightening from the center out. And I'm just doing the caps right now just to snug them up, but there it is, 50 foot-pounds. That is cool. Doesn't have that satisfying click, but it does beep. And it starts to beep. There's your 50. Nice. Beautiful. All right, we'll step it up to 100 foot-pounds, which is the torque spec for the main caps. Then we'll undo all that work and check plastic gauge. Looks like exactly 1.5 thousandths. Somewhere between 1.5 and 2. Probably on, yeah,
And that's pretty.
We checked our crank tolerances on the mains. We're gonna do the rods when we get the pistons. Got the rear main, or at least half of the rear main seal in the block here. So we're going with assembly lube, get all the bearings all schmeezed up. We're gonna drop the crank in, caps on, and then the other half of the rear main seal. And we'll show you, there's a couple of spots where we have to add RTV. And for anybody watching who's never built an engine before, I'm using Lucas Oil assembly lubricant. And the reason that you use assembly lube is because it's sticky, as you can see. So it stays in place on like bearing surfaces, crank journals and stuff. And essentially what this does is it provides that initial lubrication to the engine before the oil pump moves oil to this bearing. Essentially, it's going to keep your engine alive until you make oil pressure. All right, so Neil gave us a little bit of a tip here. This is the rearmost bearing cap. If you'll notice, we have a bead of RTV along the edge of the cap and then over the edge of the rear main seal right here. Nice. So here's the back-to-back comparison. Here's a click type torque wrench, half-inch drive, set at 100 foot-pounds. Right there. Nice. Nice. Cool. Ooh. Ooh, it feels really good. It feels toit. You know what I'm saying? That's like T-O-I-G-H-T. Okay, toit.
All the oil pressure.
Wow. That is very good. That's awesome. That's satisfying. I mean, yeah, this isn't anywhere close to running at all, and the entire plan for this weekend fell apart, but we have a crank and an engine that spins. All right, we got the off engine spring compressor. This makes this job a lot easier. So you just put the retainer on top of the spring, get the stop on the face of the valve, push this down, it'll lock in place. Now it holds everything, gives you time to get the keepers in here. So this is our passenger side cylinder head, all assembled. Now the rockers aren't on it yet because we're going to wait until we get the engine put together with the lifters and push rods. It's a few days later, pistons finally got here, and I went down the street to S Motorsports shop because he has it pressed. We're going to quickly press the old pins out of the old pistons and get the new ones on there. So here are the new pistons. These are Rebuilder's Choice, but they're from Canter Auto, Canter with a K. These are standard bore for a 343 with a Teflon coated skirt. Very similar to what came out with the upgrade of the Teflon coated skirt. So here's my setup to get the piston pins out. I've got two sockets resting under the bottom side of the piston in the relief here. And then I'm using a 5/8 inch socket with a little bitty press here to just gently push these pins out. And I'll show you what happened with this piston. This is one of the pistons that was stuck. So because of the way I have to support these, I think all of these pistons are gonna break on their way out. And it's just because these pins were literally seized to the inside of the piston. It's kind of something you can't avoid, something like this. These pistons are really old and they're not in the best shape anyway. One thing to note, if you're ever going to rebuild an engine yourself, is usually there's some sort of indicator on the top of the piston to tell you the orientation. So this one, you see there's a very pronounced notch right here. That notch faces the front of the block. So this is the new piston, and you can see there's a notch very, very clearly on one side. Every single one of these pistons is the same. The factory ones had notches in two different orientations, but regardless, make sure that you know what way things go together. Piston towards the front of the block, so whenever you're assembling rods onto pistons, just keep that in mind. All right, we got the new pistons put on the old rods. Everything looks nice and loosey-goosey, ready to go. We're gonna head back to my house, get the rod bolts changed out for the ARP hardware that came with the car. Thanks again to S Motorsports. If you guys haven't checked him out on YouTube, he's local to me. He's got a lot of content on his 2018 Camaro here, and then he did a full, really, really nice LS build on this Trans Am over here. All QA1 parts underneath that thing, built 6 liter, it's pretty cool. Anyway, check him out on YouTube. He does some really cool stuff. He has really good attention to detail, and his swaps and his builds turn out really, really nice. Back in my shop, we have the new pistons in the rods, but we also have new rod bolts that we need to get put in here. Because I'm a little nervous and I don't want to damage anything, I'm probably just going to put this rod in the vise, not like crazy tight, going in with the bibby hammer, okay? We don't need anything super high horsepower for this, at least I hope not. It's a good way to make sure the nuts on the rod bolts won't ever go on again. Okay, so that's not too bad. I actually found a pretty good way to do this. You start the new ARP bolt here through the rod, and then you put the old nut back on and grab an extra large socket that fits over the nut. And then, using your vise as a press, slowly push the rod bolt into the rod end. Now it helps if you have a quality vise, and I don't. I guess this is like the best one that you could get at Harbor Freight, but by no means is this an actual good vise. But as long as it's good and strong, it should work for stuff like this. I just couldn't find a better way to press these in with Eric's press. I couldn't find a way to rig it up. You know, for such a small bolt going into a regular size hole, it really does seem to fit tighter than you'd think. Just saying, I think this is an average size hole, and I think this is a normal size. New pistons are on, new rod bolts are in, and I am really, really tempted to put this thing together yet tonight. It's already 9 o'clock, so I gotta call it, but tomorrow we will have a short block, hopefully a long block. Before we can go slamming pistons in this block, gotta get the rings on there. So these are the rings that came with the car, with the 40 over pistons, 693040, and these are the 693 standard bore piston rings. These are pre-gapped, I guess, and because we're not going to run boost or nitrous or anything on this for now, we're just going to roll with these. Whenever I'm installing piston rings, I always try to roll the ring into the groove. So if you start your ring in the groove that you want it in, just like that, and then roll the ring around the piston, get it most of the way in the groove, and then it's only really stressful right at the very end. You're trying desperately not to break that ring. And there you go. Brand new second ring on here. Same thing with the top ring, and then we'll offset all the gaps and we're done. So I've got all the rings on the pistons. The block is turned right side up. In the meantime, I have the timing cover soaking in a bucket of hot water and super clean, just so that I can try to get some of the crud off of that thing for when it's time to assemble the front. Next thing we're going to do is check the rod bearing clearance. So we're going to put a piston in a hole, connect it to the crankshaft, and tighten it down completely dry, just like we did last time. We'll set a piece of plastic gauge on the rod journal, tighten it all down, and then see what it comes out to clearance wise. The mains were good, so I anticipate that the rod bearing clearance will be good as well, but we are going to trust but verify. New tool alert. Wanted to try one of these plier style piston ring compressors. I don't know, got this on Amazon. We'll see how it works. Supposed to be pretty straightforward, simple to use, and it's ratcheting. Reason I went with this is because it has collars for a bunch of different size pistons. So because I don't just rebuild one size of engine all the time, I figured I would give this a shot. If it works well, I will put the link in the description below. I guess I'll do that regardless, and then you can buy it at your own risk. One last tip, and anybody that's built an engine before will know this. Put something over the rod bolts. So in this case, I think I found 2 rubber vacuum caps or bypass caps. Put those over the tips of the rod bolts so that they don't nick the crank on the way down. Here we go, in with piston number 1. All right, now to use my extremely expensive piston installation hammer. Hey, all right, well that's one piston installed, but that seemed to work pretty good. So the plastic gauge didn't lay quite perfectly across the journal there, but if you look here, it kind of squished out to maybe a little bit thinner than a 1.5, a little bit thicker than a 2, so somewhere between 1.5 and 2 thousandths for rod bearing clearance. Good enough. Look at this. Ooh, right? Fancy, shiny. Okay, let's see what it does. This is the absolute best part of every engine build. This right here. Short block is together. new shiny pistons, fresh clean bores, bunch of assembly lube everywhere, whatever, a little bit of lube shows you care. Look at this thing, right? What do you think? Camshaft cylinder heads?
Yes.
It's the next night, and I was out here working on this. Last night, and we were talking about what cam we were going to put in this thing. And we have a factory replacement cam here, but I came up with a better idea. This old 304 over here was in Steve's Hornet. It ran perfect. It has an Edelbrock Performer Plus cam. I think it's a 2132, so nothing incredible, but it has a cam and lifters that are already broken in. I think I'm going to take this camshaft and these lifters, match them exactly the same. They will fit in the 343 block, and then we don't have to worry about cam break-in. That's huge. That's like the most terrifying 20 minutes of every engine build, especially with flat tap stuff. Now the cam that's in here, I think it's like an RV cam or whatever. It's 204, 214 at 50, very, very low lift, 450 lift and 475. But according to Edelbrock's website, it will work with factory valve springs, and it'll give us a little boost to allow this 343 to breathe. Not to mention, this thing has a much cleaner timing cover and a water pump. I might take all of this stuff. Working over in the engine corner, finally get to use some pieces off of this dang 304. I've been wanting to put this to use for years, and I finally have a reason. Oh yeah, we have to pull the balancer off first, dumbass. You guys, I need you over here. A little bit, please, if I could. Thank you. Once again, try this one more time. Now with harmonic balancer puller. All right, one floor bolt, harmonic balancer removed. All right, here we go. Come on. I'm missing something, aren't I? All right, well, duh, right there. Found it. Yep. Look at that. Woo. Oops. Any of you guys like really engineer-related terms for normal activity, like spontaneous percussive displacement? I really enjoy that stuff. I think it's funny. That's so weird. The timing set was actually acting like it was pressed on. Wonder if there's just a little schmutz or something on there. I don't know. That was weird. What brand is this? I'd like to know so that I never use it. All right, so there are all 16 lifters pulled out, laid out in order. I pushed a wrench into this side of the box. That's the front, so all these will go right back in the exact same bores over there. Just as long as they're the same as the lifters that came with the engine, we should be good. All right, here we go. 3/4 race cam, RV cam. This thing will jump a Coke can. It might carry a Coke can. So just to give you a visual comparison here, that's the new lifter versus the old lifter. Looks like the new lifter has a slightly different design with this groove right here, but they look to be exactly the same, so in we go. Seems like that front cam bearing is pretty snug. So I wanted to mention this. I put the cam in here and it went through the first like 4 bearings, no problem. When it came time to get the front journal and the bearing, this thing was snug. Like, had to tap the face of the cam with a soft face hammer. So the cam does turn in here. It's just pretty snug in the bearing. Once it gets moving, it's fine. So I was a little worried about that. However, when I picked the engine up from the shop when they knocked the cam bearings in, the guy did say, hey, that cam fits a little bit snug, and every single AMC I've ever rebuilt does the same thing. So you shouldn't have anything to worry about. And I intend to trust this guy because I believe he was rebuilding engines before I was born. Just test fitting the timing set here. So if you're curious, an AMC times like this. You have piston number 1, which is driver's side like a Chevy at top dead center. The crank sprocket right here has a dot right there, and then put the cam gear on the cam and line them up dot to dot. That's it. Timing chain goes on. We can keep moving. timing set's on, distributor gear, fuel pump eccentric. I'm gonna go in with the cam bolt here. I'm gonna put just a small amount of red Loctite. I wish I had my orange stuff. I must have left that in New Mexico. But I'm hoping that maybe just a small amount of red will be enough to hold this in place. I have bad memories of cam gear problems on my FE, so that's why I'm doing this. Then we'll go 35 foot-pounds. There it is. I'm gonna go in with the lifters next, and I know I'm doing this just a little bit out of order. That's okay. Just wanna make sure I don't lose track of the lifters. We're doing all of this so that we don't have to break in a cam, so I am gonna do a little bit out of order, but it'll be fine. Ready to go on with the head gasket, clean the cylinder deck surfaces and the cylinder head surface. So here's our new multi-layer steel gasket. Gotta say, it is really nice that Sheridan and his dad did such a nice job taking this thing apart. Every single fastener for this engine is bagged and tagged. They even have notes on here. Head bolts, short bolts on the bottom. Freaking amazing. I'd like to interrupt your video for a little bit of gratitude. We had a bunch of parts fund donators for this video. Every time this happens, it blows me away, and I don't know what to say really, but I want to recognize every single one of you. Jay Winkler, David Williams, 411 Now Media, Andrew Smith, and James Sidoris. All of you, thank you so much for your donations. You guys know that all parts fund donations go right back into the cars that I'm building on the channel. Helps keep things moving. It truly blows my mind every single time. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Back to the video. So I dropped the new push rods that came with the engine in here and just setting the rockers on here. And it looks like everything is going to be good. It looks like the geometry is exactly the same. There's like a little guide hole for every single push rod. It's pretty cool. We're back at it today. Sam stopped by to see if he can't help me get this thing together. Going in with the oil pump pickup now, and AMCs are interesting because this is like a pipe thread oil pump pickup. It's kind of neat though, because you don't really ever have to worry about it falling off. And I can't remember where this is supposed to end. It's somewhere back there. All right, let's see if that's gonna fit. Or if we gotta wiggle it a little. Not even close. We gotta be way further back. I think I'm gonna try test fitting this oil pan with the gasket. Ooh, these gaskets aren't that thick. They really are not. What this looks like. I think it's good. We're gonna glue these gaskets to the block and then throw the oil pan on. So I got a thin coat of black RTV on both sides of the oil pan gasket. We'll get this sucker on here, bolt it down. It's kind of a little bit of a pain with that baffle. And because we have to line up two separate gaskets, this is one of those wiggle it till you find it kind of situations. I mean, you know, I'm used to that. I don't know about you.
It's just so hard to see.
Yeah, that's right. Even with the lights on, it's so glaringly obvious. I think I'm just gonna do nothing but innuendos on this channel from now on. Just try to sneak as many of them as I possibly can. It's important that you torque your oil pan bolts precisely. So I was looking at the AMC engine assembly manual, and I got to the section where you have to weld the baffle to the underside of your intake. It's not a practice that I've seen much, but AMC was innovative back in those days. I mean, welding steel to cast iron, this is just textbook. It's perfect. Yes. Welding more engine parts, don't mind me. The dipstick tube broke in half right where it goes into the block, which I think is exactly what happened to Steve's AMC, so I will fix it. Got no air compressor. So we got our freshly welded dipstick in here. Try to fish this thing in there. See, really nice welds there. There, okay. So in this situation, because I don't want to buy a new dipstick, I'll RTV this. So the gasket kit that I ordered came with a valley pan, but is also an intake manifold gasket. We used one of these on Steve's car, so I'm going to put this in here. I put a little bit of RTV around the water ports, but as far as I understand, this kind of wedges itself in place, and yeah, basically push this down until it hooks in. Hey, look at that, it goes right in place if you install it the right way. Now's the part where I burn up, you know, half a tube of silicone on the china wall. I'm going to attack this just like I would a GM product. I'm going to take the gaskets that they gave me and throw them in the trash because they probably won't work anyway. So we'll make a very, very healthy bead of silicone back here. So at this point, this RTV is mostly cosmetic, but when we put the intake on, it will become structural. I'll let the RTV set up for a little bit. I'm ready to drop the intake on. At least I hope so. Hopefully I can plop this thing. Oh, great. Never mind. Back to the welder. After my third trip to the welder while assembling this engine, here we go with the plop. Ready? Plop. I'm not even going to coat this one in RTV. I know. That is strange to most of you, I bet. But I'm not going to do it for this one. Here we go. 304 timing cover. Hopefully I can get this gasket in there. Of course, as soon as I turn the camera off, it slips right on. We did have to loosen the two front oil pan bolts to get just a little bit of flex out of it so we could get on the dowels and shove in there. So this is the water pump from the 304. The issue here is that the standoff between the 343 water pump and the 304 is different. The 304 is a little shorter, so we do have to use the 343 water pump. I've looked at that one. While it looks a little crusty, I think it's going to be okay. We're going to try it. So we got to blow this one off of here, put that one back on, then we can paint this bad boy. Okay, look at this. It is my favorite time. I've said that before, so never mind. Maybe it's one of my favorite times in the engine build process, and that is when you finally get the engine together and you get to throw a new coat of paint on it. This thing now looks horrible again. Now, if you look at, like, you know, from the cylinder head down, things look really good, but then you look at the heads, the valve covers, and the intake manifold, this thing looks like absolute crap. So we found we found a paint color. It is not at all correct, and it's not going to look right whatsoever, but it was cheap and available, and I'm not going to order custom spray paint and wait for it. It's now time to make the most beautiful engine ever. Just remember, it looked pretty good before we put all the... There's the air compressor again. Look at this. We were spraying this stuff and it was like, wow, this paint is really thin and it doesn't cover very good at all. It's because this is a blue anodized tint for chrome accessories on cars. This is not actually blue metallic paint. I didn't look close enough at this. This looks terrible. Well, what do you think?
I think it looks great.
It looks better than it did. Obviously, I know everyone's probably wondering, it's not AMC blue. I get that.
It's AMC black.
It's AMC black. Yeah. Whatever. It's now rebuilt, and I have the receipts, or at least some of them. So whatever. Maybe I'll run to the store and buy Pontiac blue because that's close enough, and it might make the Pontiac guys mad. I don't know. Dalton might not talk to me again after that. But anyway, it's painted, and we are done for tonight. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Back out here again. It's unseasonably warm outside. I think it's going to hit 27 degrees here in Wisconsin, which is fantastic for late January. Now, this engine's black because it's what I had on hand. And believe it or not, my local O'Reilly's didn't have a can of AMC blue on hand. It's not a really common color. This is Chrysler blue, which I know is not the right blue, but it shows I tried. It is blue. It's a different color blue. I hit it with a coat of that Chrysler blue, and then went over the top with some of this weird anodized stuff we bought the other day. I don't know. It's not the right blue. I don't care. Good enough. Let's get it in the car. Got the engine on the hoist here. One thing I couldn't do with the engine on the stand was install the cam plug. You can see here, here's the 2 galley plugs. I was able to access those with it on the stand, but this I couldn't hammer in. So this is just basically exactly like a giant freeze plug. Just goes in the end of the cam board there. Had to get that silicone and tapped in there. The 2 AMC V8s I've installed or uninstalled in my life seem to always go easier if they're attached to the transmission. It's just because AMC did a really good job of sticking their engines really far back and really far down in the chassis. So here is our Borg-Warner M11 transmission. This is a very interesting automatic. It's a 3-speed, but what's interesting about it is it has an aluminum bell and tail housing, but it has a cast iron case, which makes this transmission ridiculously heavy. You're probably saying to the TV, did you install the flex plate yet? No. One thing I really like about AMCs is that you can't install stuff wrong. I know I've said that already, but pretty much any time that I go to put a flex plate on or anything like that, I have to do this a couple of times to try to get the flex plate lined up because one of the holes is offset just enough to where it will only go on one way. But because there's 6 bolts, you're probably going to have to try it all 6 ways. I'm going to start one bolt in there just to hold this whole mess together, and then we're going in with just a little bit of red Loctite on every single bolt. Torque is 105 foot-pounds. AMC made this easy. Shove a ratchet or something through one of these balancing holes. That should hold it. Sketchy, but it'll work. There we go. Before I put the torque converter in the transmission and connect it to the engine, I am going to replace the front pump seal or the torque converter seal right here. Most of the time when a transmission sits for a long time, this seal and others will dry out, and this one right here is very, very prone to leaking on Chryslers, AMCs, probably Chevys too, but this is a good one to replace while everything's apart. So I was able to get that seal out around the shaft. All I did was I smacked the outer edge of it here with a flathead, almost, you know, using it like a chisel, like you're supposed to, and then kind of used that as a way to pop it out. Came right out. Seal didn't look too bad, but I'm gonna throw a new one in because then if this thing does leak, people can't say, you didn't change that. It's another fantastic application for the bibby hammer. It's great for doing seals like this because it actually fits inside the bell housing. See what I'm saying? Pretty nice. Looks like this torque converter's still got fluid in it. That's pretty cool. I might use a little bit of it just around the snout of the torque converter so that, you know, it's not completely dry. It goes in there. All right, here we go. Now, the torque converter has to get engaged with the front pump. Ooh, that feels like it. Yep. That seems right to me. I can feel the resistance of the torque converter turning the pump. Just before this, I was looking for the torque converter bolts, or in this case, the nuts, and they're right here on the torque converter. So if you ever buy a car that's been taken apart, make sure it's from Sheridan and his dad. Thank you guys. Seriously, I couldn't do this as easily if this wasn't taken apart with so much attention to detail. I think there's a reason that this is way more fun outside of the car. I mean, you can do torque converter studs with the engine in the car. It's just a little more annoying. I think it's easier to do out here. There it is. It's always the fourth way, every time. I mean, look at this. The original bell housing bolts. Any of you that have changed an engine or pulled an engine on an AMC may appreciate how easy it is to do this outside the car. Finished rebuilding this front lower pulley, ready to bolt that onto the crank. Then we can turn the crank over a little bit and tighten all those torque converter bolts. It is quite difficult to turn this engine with I mean, I know this is a 3/8 ratchet, but holy crap, I think we're building some compression, that's for sure. I don't recommend trying to do this by yourself, but if that's what the schedule allows, you gotta do it. In case you're curious, I only snapped off one of these. It's not too bad. Oh, this hood is super light. Awesome. Oh, much better. Do I look as cool as I feel doing this? Oh, wait, hold on. I see a problem here. I have to undo the transmission cross member. Considering some of the parts for this engine came from Steve's 304, I also called Neil, and he had a couple of parts sitting around. He had these, a pair of long tube AMC headers with the rectangle port flange. That's important, that fits the older engines. I'm gonna see if I can't fit these in, but if I remember right, getting headers installed on an AMC requires you to lift the engine up. So Eric from S Motorsports stopped over here. I called him because I needed help trying to smash these headers in here. And the driver's side, while it looks like it's gonna line up, it interferes with the steering shaft majorly. And on the passenger side, we don't have a chance. We've been trying to get this dang header in there. It just will not work.
It doesn't seem like it wants to. This and the header want to live in the same space.
Yeah, whatever this support is for the strut tower, that and like the header tube off of one of the middle ports there, they will not fit. So instead, we're gonna use the log manifolds that came with it because they will bolt right on and I can get to starting this thing a lot faster. That's right, you can't pull the engine hoist out really easily because the front of the car has to sit on it. Yep, we need the jack to lift the car off the engine hoist. Behold, 343 is in the Rebel, transmission's hooked up, at least to the engine anyway. The drivetrain is back in this car for the first time in I don't know how long. It's been a while though. There's still a ton more work to do, but I'm pretty pumped. I mean, this car is back in one piece, sort of. It's in less pieces than it was before. So I was looking in the trunk for a couple of other parts like the water neck and a couple other missing pieces under the hood. I saw this. That's a spacer plate or starter support plate, goes between the transmission and the engine. So I know what I'm doing tomorrow. I have to pull the engine and transmission out to put that block plate in. And I went outside today and saw the sun for like 6 seconds. And now I have the motivation. I think I want to make this thing run. This video is like 5 days later than I wanted it to be, so I might as well make it good. Yeah, it's best if you just scrape your way out of the tunnel the whole way. So I have the nuts loosened up on the torque converter. Should give us just enough room to pry this back. Hopefully just get it off of those dowels. Hey, I can see the dowel on this side. There we go. Aha. I believe it goes in like this. All right, we'll just take the damn torque converter bolts off. Holy cow, I thought this engine and transmission assembly was a little bit too smooth. That is why. Now I remember this. You can barely get access to the stud. You actually might have to pry the block plate away just a little bit to get access to the torque converter studs, the nuts. It's a pain, but I remember this now. Look at this. There is an access cover in the block plate to allow you to tighten the torque converter nuts. Genius. Look at that. Straight shot right to it. This is the perfect time to throw the starter in too. Exhaust manifold gaskets on this thing are funky. They come as one piece, and then you basically just break them apart at the perforated seam. I actually had the wrong set of gaskets before. They put a gasket set in here for the rec port and for the dogleg port. Dogleg, rec port. You can tell I really made it on YouTube. I could afford to buy new bolts for the exhaust manifolds. I know, breaking the bank. I got this used fuel pump from Neil. I think it's gonna work. I did check it, if you can hear. It is actually pumping. It'll at least seal up the hole so we don't have a massive oil leak. There you go, used fuel pump on. I have the transmission lines looped back here. Starter's dangling from there, exhaust is on, fuel pump is in. We're gonna lift this thing up, jam it back in there, get it hooked up onto the cross member, and then I'm gonna throw a carb and a distributor in this thing and some oil. Okay, so in record time, the 343 and the transmission's back in the car, set on the mounts, cross members in, but now we have torque converter and block plate and starter and everything. So all I need to make this thing run is oil, the distributor, and a carburetor. I got this carburetor from a fan. I believe his name's Dave. He's local to me. Thank you so much, Dave Bear, I believe. He gave me this carburetor for free. He donated it to the channel. This is a 4-barrel Holley. I believe it's a 750. I know it's way too big for this engine. However, it's a square bore. It'll fit this intake manifold, and it's here. Before we drop the distributor in, we need to get this thing on top dead center on number 1. It was there when I timed it, and I should have left it. But like most people, I wanted to roll it over. Right there, you can see timing mark is right at top dead center. We're gonna leave it right there. So before we drop the distributor in for good, what I wanna do is prime the oil system. AMC's have an external oil pump, which you can drive with a tang. Essentially, it looks like this. And this is a trashed distributor. This thing got smashed. The advanced weights are broken and stuff. And actually, the entire housing is snapped off right there. So I'm gonna modify this to be my AMC oil pump priming tool. First thing I'm gonna do is drive the roll pin out that holds the gear on. Now the gear should be able to slide off. And there is your distributor shaft with the tang that we need to drive the oil pump. The only thing I'm gonna do now, I think, is cut the top of this off and we're done. And voila, AMC oil pump priming tool. I might just take this burr off the top, but that's essentially it. You can now chuck this in a drill, You can now chuck this in a drill and you can spin the oil pump without moving the engine. Forgot to mention this, if you're gonna make one of your own distributor priming tools like this, make sure you keep the base of the distributor. This is actually gonna fit down, in this case in the timing cover, and it's gonna keep the shaft here that's gonna interface with the oil pump nice and concentric so it's not flopping around in there. So before we go priming the oil system, need oil in there. And what I'm using as essentially a break-in oil is Traveler brand 1040 from Tractor Supply. This was $11.99 for a 5-quart jug. I do have a bottle of zinc additive in here, but remember, we don't have to break this cam in. It's mainly just for the bearings and the rings. So I think this will be fine. We're not going to run it too long. It'll be all right. Look, I even found the oil cap. All right, so now we can go in with our AMC oil pump priming tool. Shove that down in there. I don't know if you can hear that, but we're already engaged in the oil pump. We got plenty of that shaft sticking out. So now we can go in with a drill and start priming. Now what we're waiting for is to see oil come through the top end. You can already feel it loading down. There we go. Oil on every single rocker, so we know we've built oil pressure. Let me check this side. Yep, look at that. I don't have oil on this one yet. I'll run it for just a little while longer to make sure, but we have oil to the top end. So I'm ready to drop the distributor in. And beauty of this is that we can really pick any terminal we want to be number one on the distributor cap. So at least from what I remember, the vacuum advance usually sits somewhere over here. There we go. So basically I can take this cap, throw it on there, and then wherever this rotor's pointing, I can make that the number one terminal, shift all the plug wires, and then we're going to have the correct firing order. Time to go on with our free Holly. So the fuel inlet's going to be a problem. That sucks. So I'm going to switch gears for a second. I noticed that we need a starter solenoid over here because this one is missing. Let me get this sucker on here and hook up the starter at least to the solenoid so that I can power it with like my power probe or something. All right, starter is hooked up. Now, yes, I understand these battery cables are backwards in color. I bought the wrong ones. I need different ones. Let's just see if this thing cranks. All right, that was sort of, that was it. Uh-oh. Huh. Oh. Yeah. I see smoke. Why? Why do I see smoke from under there? Wonder if our starter isn't good. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Okay. I wonder if the connection there on the starter is loose. So the cable on the starter is tight. Okay. Let's try this again. Yep. Oh. Yeah, I think our starter is screwgled. Won't even turn the motor. All right, well, our, desert starter, no bueno. Smells bad. I don't know. Cable doesn't look the best, but should still have done it. So I have a couple other spares. We'll get one of those. I tried this with the new starter and it did work for a second, but now solenoid. Looks like a brand new solenoid out of the box is dead. I'm gonna try jumping it with a big cable. Let's just try this. Oh. Yeah, it wants to work. Okay, we don't have the strongest battery, but it's cranking. All right, all I want to do is go live with the coil, a little bit of brake clean down the intake, and jump the starter. Let's see if it'll even jump anymore. Okay, perfect. We've got starter, solenoid is junk. A little bit of brake clean down the intake. 12 volts right to the coil. Okay, we don't have a ton of voltage right now. The distributor I used has a Pertronics module in there, so I'm not sure if that's actually getting what it needs or not, but all right, we'll pull a plug and test spark. Just gonna throw a plug in there near ground, and we'll try it one more time. Yep, I saw it. Okay, so it seems like now we just need to get enough voltage in this crappy battery to turn this thing over. Get a load of this. The actual starting fluid, I know some people get kind of picky about that. Yeah, that coil's getting hot too. Okay. Only thing with this is if it does fire up and light off, it's going to be wide open until it runs out of fuel. But here we go. Whoa! Yes! Yeah! Oh! Yeah! Oh man, it fired up! Woo! All right, let's see if we can do that again. That's a lot. One more time. Here we go. Yeah! All right, one more time, just for good measure. Give this sucker a good splash of fuel. Coil is still hot. Yep. Here we go. Come on, Rebel. Yes! Ah! Oh man! If we had a carburetor! Come on! Come on, you pig! Woo! Did you see that fireball? Wow! All right, I don't want to crank on this thing too much more. We need to do a proper break-in, but that's where we're going to end this episode on the Rebel. We have a ton of work left to do, fuel system, brakes, tires, but in the next episode, you're going to see us handle all of that and get this Rebel back on the road. Thank you all so very much for watching. We will catch you in the next one.